Good evening and welcome everyone to this public meeting. I would like to advise you that this is being live streamed, audio and video recorded, and shall form part of the record, which will be retained in accordance with the town's retention bylaw. And if you'd like more information about that bylaw, please contact the clerk's office. We'll now deliver the land acknowledgement statement. The town of Innisfil acknowledges that we are situated on treaty land that is steeped in rich Indigenous history. We also acknowledge that this land is the traditional territories of the First Peoples of Turtle Island. It is shared between the Anishinaabe people of Beausoleil First Nation, Chippewas of Rama First Nation, and the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation, and we thank them for generations of stewardship. This meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people, and as settlers, we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. The town acknowledges the forced sacrifices that are the foundation of Canadian society today. We are dedicated to honoring Indigenous history and culture and committed to moving forward in the spirit of reconciliation and respect with all First Nation, Métis, and Inuit. Now, I would ask if we have a mover and a seconder, please, to approve the agenda for this evening, moved by Councillor Richardson and seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is carried. I would also like to point out at this point that we do have quorum, so the meeting is in order, and I will advise that Councillor Fred Drodge was not able to be here with us personally, but he is watching the meeting today and will relay any comments or questions he has through members of council. So tonight is a joint meeting, and we're pleased to have the County of Simcoe and the Town of Innisfil both here regarding Innisfil's draft new official plan. And it's being held for information and public consultation purposes only. There'll be no decisions being made this evening. So I would like to welcome two members of County Council. We have His Worship Warden Basil Clark is here from the Township of Ramara. And we also have the Vice Chair of Corporate Services, Sean Miskamings, also the Deputy Mayor of the Township of Tiny, who are joining us this evening so that we only have to do this once and not twice. I would also like to welcome county staff in attendance. We have the County Clerk, Jonathan McGill. We have Nathan Westendorp. Nathan is the Director of Planning and Chief Planner at the County of Simcoe. And Dan Amadeo, he's the Manager of Planning. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Now I'll go to council and ask if there's any disclosures of pecuniary or conflict of interest on this item tonight. Seeing none, if one becomes apparent to you while we're in the discussion, please let it be known at that time. So I'll just give you a little rundown of what's going to happen tonight. We'll start with a presentation by consultants on behalf of the county and the town on the proposed draft new official plan. Then we'll have the opportunity for public consultation, during which we will hear from members of the public. We would really appreciate it because we have so much interest and so many people here this evening. We'd ask each member to speak only for 5 minutes, to ask questions or make your comments, and staff will respond wherever possible. If staff aren't able to answer your questions this evening, in the staff report coming forward, your questions will be answered at that time. So if your 5 minutes were not sufficient time for you to get your points across, you can come, once everyone has had the opportunity to speak, then you can come back up for a second time to raise something that has not already been raised or to ask questions of clarification. And then after all members of the public have provided comments, council will have an opportunity to ask any questions or provide comments, and we'll give the county representatives time then as well. Should any member of the public watching the live stream, thank you for being with us tonight, wish to comment, they can email Clerk's Services, and these comments will be provided to council and town staff and taken into consideration before council makes a final decision. You may also be added to the circulation list as an interested party, and you will be updated on any future information regarding this item. The email will be listed on the PowerPoint during the meeting and is also available on tonight's agenda, which can be found on the town's website. So we'll now hear from the town clerk, Clerk Marshall, on how public notice of this meeting was provided.
Thank you, Your Worship. Notice for this public meeting was published on Innisfil Today on December 17th, 2025, posted on the town's website and on the town's Get Involved Innisfil site for review and commenting. Notice was also sent via email to interested parties.
Thank you, Clerk Marshall. Has there been any correspondence been received by the clerk services concerning this item?
Thank you, Your Worship. 20 pieces of correspondence have been received by the clerk's office regarding this application. Correspondence from Malone Given Parsons, dated January 13th, 2026. 2 pieces of correspondence from Jones Consulting Group Limited in correspondence dated January 15th, 2026. Correspondence from Biglieri Group Limited, dated January 16th, 2026. From John Stilich in correspondence dated January 19th, 2026. Correspondence from KLM Planning dated January 19th, 2026. Innovative Planning Solutions in correspondence dated January 19th, 2026. KLM Planning in correspondence dated January 19th, 2026. Humphreys Planning Group, Inc. in correspondence dated January 20th, 2026. Karen Mahoney in correspondence dated January 20th, 2026. Ian and Tina Campbell in correspondence dated January 20th, 2026. Sarah Allen in correspondence dated January 20th, 2026. KLM Planning in correspondence dated January 20th, 2026. MHBC Planning in correspondence dated January 20th, 2026. Carol Haken in correspondence dated January 21st, 2026. Innovative Planning Solutions in correspondence dated January 21st, 2026. Bogdan Jurovic in correspondence dated January 21st, 2026. MHBC Planning in correspondence dated January 21st, 2026. Cortel Group in correspondence dated January 21st, 2026. And MHBC Planning in correspondence dated January 21st, 2026. Any correspondence received today after 3 p.m. has been forwarded to council and staff and will form part of the public record. Members of the public may provide comments or register their interest regarding this item during this meeting or up until council makes a decision by contacting the clerk's office at clerksoffice@innisfil.ca.
Thank you so much, Ms. Marshall, and I want to say that all members of council have been circulated all of that correspondence, and since 3 o'clock, there's been another 4 pieces of correspondence that is in all of our inboxes. So we'll now hear from Justine Giancola from Dillon Consulting Group, who will provide an overview of the official plan review.
Thank you very much. Appreciate everyone having us here today. My name is Justine. I'm a partner with Dillon Consulting and have the honor of being the project manager on behalf of the consulting team, working very closely with staff on the official plan review. With me today is Mary Feely, just behind me. She'll be joining the conversation for any Q&A on the settlement boundary expansion work, and she's SGL Planning has been partnering with us on this project. So if we, that's the clicker, thank you. So what I'll go over is a quick overview of how we got here and where we are on the project, as well as the timeline. Spend a little bit more time on the settlement area boundary expansion and the work that's been undertaken since we last came to council in the June of last year, as well as a little bit of a deeper dive into the agricultural impact assessment, and then highlight some of the official plan schedules that we're proposing some modifications to, as well as next steps. And we're here not for any decision today and look forward to getting the broad range of feedback and input that we can use to help finalize the process. The Our Place, which is a current official plan, was approved in 2018 and establishes really the vision, goals, and objectives for the policies and policies for the town to 2031. And municipalities are required to review and update their official plan every 5 years, as mandated under the Planning Act. In addition, changes to provincial policy and directions require the town, through their official plan, to review and plan for growth to 2051 and beyond. The official plan review that the town is undertaking really provides an opportunity to create policies that meet the needs of communities and residents today and for years and decades to come. As part of the official plan review process, Dylan, in partnership with SGL, are working with staff, the County of Simcoe, in services, and all of the town staff to develop a viable growth option that aligns a vision and principles with the town's official plan. When we look at an official plan document, it is a key document that guides the way our town grows and shapes the places that we live, work, and play. It sets the vision and goals for how the community will change over time, as well as spatial direction on where general land uses and essential elements of the community are to be placed. An official plan is a policy document that really guides development and is implemented through an implementing bylaw. So the town has a current zoning bylaw as well as a community planning permit bylaw that's in effect for Alcona and the shoreline. The goal would be, once the official plan review is complete, to undertake the community planning permit bylaw town-wide, and that tool would implement the policies of the official plan. So the official plan really provides that guidance and direction on how to help shape the municipality and is implemented through an implementing bylaw. In terms of where we come from, the official plan review process began late 2024 and has been undertaken in 3 phases. The majority of work was undertaken throughout 2025, with us coming to having a public open house on March 5th, 2025, a background review and technical advisory committee meetings. We also met with the development liaison group. And then with yourselves back on January 25th around the growth options. And today we're going to build off of those growth options and growth strategy that we came to council and got specific feedback on, and provide an overview of several other elements of the draft official plan that you have in front of you today. And all of this is to seek feedback and input through the statutory engagement process to help finalize the final version that will come to council for recommendation later this year. So the changes that you'll see in front of you are intended to inform a more concise, flexible, and user-friendly official plan that better reflects the community's needs and future growth opportunities. We did undertake a statutory open house that was held on Tuesday, January 6th in the evening. Unfortunately, the weather caused us to go virtual on that one last minute, so appreciate town staff pivoting with us to provide that opportunity through a virtual event and working with us to add a pop-up open house this evening. We had approximately 55 attendees participate in the virtual open house and heard feedback on a number of different topics of interest, as well as questions. There were several topics around an interest on the settlement boundary expansions and areas being considered. There was also feedback and input on the official plan, the draft document, and the importance of really understanding what was being proposed to be changed versus the current version, recognizing that it is taking on a different shape and form at the moment. There were a number of questions on how this process aligns with the Simcoe ERO and trying to understand which specific schedules are being proposed to be modified. There was also a number of pieces of feedback around the process to identify the settlement boundary expansion and specific feedback on which areas were being recommended. And so in terms of the draft official plan document, since 2018, a number of legislative changes have occurred that necessitate a review and modification of the policies. The Provincial Planning Statement 2024 has replaced the Provincial Policy Statement and Growth Plan, and Innisfil is required to update definitions and policies to align with those changes. In addition, the Planning Act modified the definition of employment areas, and that's being carried forward in the updated draft official plan. In addition, there's modifications to a need to look at growth for the long term and plan for growth to 2051 and beyond. So while not enforced, the County of Simcoe Official Plan Amendment 7 requires that the town consider settlement boundary expansions for 104.2 hectares of community area identified to accommodate the population forecast to 2051. And the town intends to look at the potential areas through this exercise and has come forward with recommendations today. A number of other catalysts that are necessitating this review include everything from changing in demographics and aging population, the need to intensify and accommodate a broader range of housing choices and affordability, the evolution of retail and office as a result of COVID-19, the evolution of transit in the town and the county, the digital economy and smart technology improvements, changing public expectations, changing lifestyles, as well as economic uncertainty, to name a few. The official plan review has also made updates to a few more technical components of the document, picking up recent master plans that have been undertaken by the municipality, including for transportation and infrastructure policies. There's been modifications proposed to pick up the active transportation directions, as well as new policies around micro-mobility and transit amalgamation, as well as electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And then there's some more structural changes that we're proposing to try to make the document easier to navigate for those who use the tool most often. So this would be really taking a critical eye and looking at when an official plan amendment is required and whether it is needed in terms of that Planning Act approval, and whether there's an opportunity through modified implementation bylaw to really have land use controls put in the regulatory document versus the policy document. Some of the other things that we looked at was just the searchability of the document. Want to make sure that people can navigate it easily, that when they click on a section it's searchable, and a number of other kind of user functions like that. And so the table of contents does look a bit different. And so this was one of the comments that came in, was trying to understand how it's changed. The table of contents has been reorganized, intended to support that user-friendly official plan, where we've shifted from alignment directly with the strategic plan to really organizing this, still carrying forward the directions from the strategic plan, but trying to remove some redundancy and create a more concise, streamlined official plan. Some of the other modifications include reducing the length of the document, incorporating secondary plans that have historically been implemented across the municipality and picking those up, as well as making reference to where a minister's zoning order is in effect. The intention is to try to avoid having to refer to separate documents for different parts of the municipality and really having a comprehensive, consolidated land use framework for the municipality that increases flexibility and reduces the need for official plan amendments. Throughout this round of engagement, we've heard a fair bit of feedback and input, and we do really appreciate everyone taking the time and energy out of their busy schedules to participate. There are a few things that we've flagged that continue to be on our work list to continue to update. Some of those include updating language on the settlement area boundary expansion to reflect the provincial planning statement and removing references to the municipal comprehensive review. A number of other mapping edits have been identified, including the Highway 489 lands, recognizing them that they should not be reflected as a settlement area, so modifying that delineation on the map, and a few other improvements to the maps to help with interpretation and clarification. Now, I'll go through a little bit about the settlement area boundary expansion analysis, picking up where we left off in June. So in planning for growth to 2051, the town needs to look at additional lands outside of the existing settlement area to accommodate future growth. And this is in addition to intensification that's planned within the existing settlement area. Through the county's municipal comprehensive review process, as it was referred to at the time, and the town's official plan review process, a total of 53 requests for settlement area boundary expansions were received, totaling 2,208 hectares. Since then, additional requests have also come in across the municipality, and there was also 605 hectares for employment lands. The municipality has gone through a comprehensive review to try to look at which of these areas should be brought in to help satisfy that long-term land need while implementing your conversion criteria and the plans for long-term growth, and really looking at infrastructure and growth comprehensively to see where additional land would be most appropriate. And so to help do this, there was the where to grow analysis that was shared back in the spring and summer, and that report kind of documented the broad range of requests as well as the approach to narrow down and look at preferred areas around Alcona and Stroud. Since then, we've also gone through an agricultural impact assessment and minimum distance separation analysis to look at which areas of the preferred, of the preliminary considered settlement area boundary expansions would be most appropriate to bring in. And what you see on this slide is part of the recommendation for lands to be brought in, includes, I'll actually go to one more slide because I think it's more helpful to, I don't know, maybe you do want to see it. I'll go back one. To see the area. So what we're recommending is that SABE 1A, adjacent to the Stroud settlement area, be brought in, as well as a portion of 1B adjusted to accommodate the minimum distance separation boundary from a current livestock operation identified on this slide as number 15, I think it is. Number 15. In addition, we're recommending bringing in settlement area, a portion of settlement area boundary expansion number 9, which is adjacent to Alcona, shown there on yellow, and the 11A and settlement area expansion 50 to the north of Alcona, which includes Alcona North and the lands adjacent. And these are those same areas highlighted on another slide. And those areas total 123.3 hectares after netting out the settlement area boundary, the minimum distance separation, as well as any natural heritage features. In order to highlight those changes, we have made some modifications to a few of the proposed schedules. And what you'll see on the right hand of this slide are the schedules that we're proposing some modifications to, and the left hand side has the complete list of your existing official plan schedules. And we'd be happy to speak to any of the proposed edits as part of any questions that come in today. And so in terms of next steps, we're enthusiastic to get all the comments tonight and to continue to work with the various stakeholders and community members who participated in this process and continue to be engaged as we finalize the official plan schedules and policies. We will then be coming back to council for adoption later on in the year. And as part of that, we've also highlighted the ongoing community planning permit system process, recognizing that some of the modifications that we're proposing would remove kind of land use controls from the official plan, but in fact implement them through your implementing bylaw. And with that, I'd be happy to take questions now or whenever appropriate. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Giancola. We'll now hear from members of the public who have questions regarding this matter. I'll first call on those in attendance here at Town Hall who wish to provide comments to come forward to the podium and state your name for the record. And then we'll hear from those members of the public who have registered to speak virtually. As a reminder, each person will have an initial 5 minutes and may return to the podium after everyone has had a chance to speak during the first round. And anyone who's been to a public meeting here before knows I really hate cutting people off. So if you could just be mindful of those 5 minutes, it would be very much appreciated. I also want you to be aware that if, when you're speaking tonight, if something comes to you afterwards, or if maybe you're not fond of speaking in front of a mic and you'd like to put your comments in writing, we're still accepting written submissions until January 30th at 6 p.m. Now, we've had a number of people request to speak this evening, and their names are listed on the screen. However, all members, whether you pre-registered or not, here will get the chance to speak. Once those on the list have been provided their 5 minutes, I will ask for further speakers here in the chambers, and you will also be permitted to speak at that time. So we'll start then with the first person who registered, which is Kevin Bouchard. Welcome, Mr. Bouchard.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Dolan and members of council. My name is Kevin Bouchard, and my presentation is about 5 minutes or 8 seconds over, so I will be mindful and try and rush it along. Thank you for the clicker. I'm a registered professional planner. I'm with IPS Consulting Inc. Our offices are at 647 Welham Road in Barrie, Ontario. I'm here representing Fariba and Anyat Brahani on the property at 4583 Cookstown line, or I'm sorry, 15th line in Cookstown. I'm going to give you, there we go, whoops. I'm going to give you just a quick overview and try and move through the slides that I think you're familiar with a little quicker, and then pause on this. So our first thing that I'd like to speak to you about is going to be a request to council in terms of our overall recommendations, so you'll know where I'm going in this presentation. Many of you have seen the project vision, so I'll go through that fairly quickly. We did a presentation in front of this council in October this year that was quite detailed, and it's not our intention to go through that in detail. Similarly, the master plan and conceptual design is there. I think it's important for our client and for council to understand the history of collaboration that our client has had over 10 years on this property in 2 successive official plan documents. So we'd like to give some indication of that. As you are probably already aware, the official plan growth is in part pegged to servicing capacities of settlement communities. And the servicing capacity for Cookstown, in our mind, is an open question with a continuing wastewater treatment plant EA. So we'd like to speak to that. The final thing is provincial strategy alignment. I appreciate that the county official plan amendment number 7 is the baseline for determination of growth, but our view is that that no longer reflects a provincial priority if it ever did. So I'd like to speak to that as well. So our requests, I'm not getting a click here. There we go. Our requests are going to modify the land use schedule of the draft official plan to include our client's property at 4583 15th line in Cookstown. And that will enable the development of approximately 630 dwelling units and the development of a complete community, assisting Cookstown in the development of a complete community through this expansion. The second thing we're going to ask for is to advance a coordinated servicing and growth management strategy. And that in part is being done, but we've come to the conclusions for our own engineering review that that strategy can be modified to accommodate an additional 1,200 residential units in Cookstown, as opposed to the 460, I believe, that are being proposed. And finally, we'd like to ask council to defer final adoption of the official plan until provincial Simcoe growth housing, the provincial growth housing objectives are clearly established. There's a redo going on in New Tecumseh, as I think you're quite aware. Bradford West Gwillimbury has stalled the growth management strategy, recognizing that the province has got different objectives and emerging objectives for growth. And we think it would be appropriate to hold and understand what those are. Oh, goodness. My apologies. So I can't seem to get this to pause on one slide here. The project vision, as you're well aware, is to provide for 630 approximately additional dwelling units. It's a diverse mix of housing types, including the affordable and attainable housing options, along with commercial enterprises and also the retention of environmental features in the area. So it is a complete community in the context of provincial planning policies in sections 2.2 and 2.3 of the PPS. You've seen the master conceptual design on previous occasions. It provides for development of a complete community, meaning a contribution in terms of, and making a meaningful contribution in terms of the housing objectives for the town, in terms of affordable and attainable housing. It slants or prioritizes, townhouses, apartments, additional community dwellings, secondary dwellings. So providing for affordable and attainable housing in this community.
30 seconds, 30 seconds, thank you.
Oh my goodness. The history of collaboration then, my client has been engaged in 2 official plans, and in each official plan, the issue of servicing capacity in Cookstown has been the issue for growth. And on that basis then, we're asking that that problem be resolved before we move forward in the further adoption of this official plan. I'm going to just wrap up with a final slide, 2 slides very quickly. We have provided information and engineering-based information that shows that we can accommodate an additional 1,200 units. Now, when you provide for those units, that's going to lower the overall servicing development costs in that community. It's a much more efficient strategy. We would like to see that integrated in the ongoing EA that is being carried forward for the wastewater treatment plant. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, provincial alignment is really a priority. The province has already made it known that they intend to reconfigure or reconsider growth in South Simcoe. It seems to us that that should be incorporated as part of a strategy as we move forward with a new official plan in the town of Innisfil, and particularly in reconsidering the opportunity for growth and development in the Cookstown area. Thank you very much. I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Mr. Burchard. There'll be no questions right now at this time. We're going to let everybody have their chance to speak. But if you have any questions or wish to come up after everyone has had an opportunity, you'll have another opportunity.
Well, I think we'll have the opportunity to follow up with staff in some of these issues as well. So I think we'll take that as our next step. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. Matthew Halo. Thank you, sir. Whenever you're ready.
Good evening. My name is Matthew Halo, registered professional planner with Innovative Planning Solutions. As you see on the screen, we're representing 4101 Highway 89 in Cookstown, just off the heels of Kevin's presentation here. So just an overview of what we'll be discussing, the requests to council or project vision, master plan conceptual design, history of the collaboration and engagement with the town, county, EEA in general, strokes, and then provincial strategy alignment as well. So similar to Mr. Bayshard, our request here is for a reconsideration of Schedule B as it relates to the Cookstown settlement area. There's an opportunity for 4101 Highway 89 as it currently stands to be serviced through the servicing strategy existing in Cookstown. And then we request there be a fuller reconsideration of all the strategy moving forward for the municipality as it relates to Cookstown in general. So the location of the lands, they're located with 2 frontages on Highway 89 and 15th line. They're approximately 10 hectares in area, contiguous with the existing Cookstown settlement area. You can see on the screen, we've pre-consulted with staff. We have the intention of submitting planning applications in short order. There's approximately 214 primary dwellings that are proposed. offering a broad range of affordability in terms of the housing choices, and provide a gateway opportunity for the town of Cookstown, for the settlement area of Cookstown. There are some barriers and opportunities to growth. Generally, as Kevin mentioned and we're aware, there's some servicing considerations associated with the future growth of Cookstown. We believe holistically we can work with adjacent landowners that have made SAVE requests and provide an opportunity for collaboration and coordinated growth into the future. There are opportunities currently. There's current capacity to allow for the development to proceed. And there's an opportunity here to align with overarching provincial objectives. Again, some hard and soft infrastructure constraints. Generally speaking, there's a constraint system that could be upgraded through collaboration and coordination with all landowners. And there's an opportunity here to provide additional soft infrastructure considerations in terms of community benefits through the subject lands. It's our understanding that the town is envisioning an official plan that will drive growth of the future to 2051 and beyond. It's our opinion that there's a bit of a misalignment between sort of the vision that the province has for overall Simcoe County, South Simcoe, and sort of we're wanting the municipality to take a sort of another look at sort of how they're approaching the official plan as it relates to Cookstown and sort of a collaborative growth to create complete and sustainable communities. I believe there's an overall net benefit to allow for overarching provincial strategy alignment. Again, our requests are on the screen here. So there's a consideration to include 4101 Highway 89 in the Cookstown settlement area, and advance a coordinated servicing and growth strategy that aligns with future provincial growth and the town's growth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Halo. Next, we have Ryan Minow-Lehan. Welcome whenever you're ready, sir.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. My name is Ryan Minow-Lehan. I'm a land use planner and partner with KLM Planning. I'm not here tonight for a settlement area expansion request. I'm here for a series of requests related to lands that are already within the urban boundary, and for lands that we believe there's an opportunity to make small modifications to the official plan to accommodate some additional housing opportunity. So tonight I'm here on behalf of Bel Air Properties, Inc. and Philren Corporation. They own lands within the Lefroy-Bell-Ewart settlement area, more specifically in Parcel 1 and Parcel 4 of the Lasami planning area. We do appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight, and I'm here to reiterate the comments in my letter dated January 20th, 2026. So our clients do have active long-standing development approvals with original draft approvals dating back to 2008. These lands are fully serviced or in the process of being fully serviced. The purpose of our request this evening is straightforward: to request very targeted amendments to the official plan, and I would consider refinements, to help deliver additional attainable housing while remaining consistent with provincial policy and good planning principles. Our request would contribute approximately 235 additional housing units within lands already slated for development, approved for development. The requests are straightforward. In Parcel 1, we're asking that the redesignation of the neighborhood commercial block to a residential low-density 2 designation be considered. This commercial block, has been vacant for 10 years, and it's been actively marketed by the developer with no uptick in commercial viability. The redesignation of these lands through this OPA process would allow for approximately 12 additional units in the broader planning framework on this specific parcel. With respect to Parcel 4, we've got a number of requests. These lands are mostly undeveloped, but permitted for development through the Ontario Municipal Board. And for lands at the southeast corner of Killarney Beach Road and 20th Side Road, we're requesting a redesignation to a residential medium density designation with a site-specific height limit of 5 stories. This location meets the intent of the draft official plan policies for higher density because These lands are compatible with surrounding land uses. These lands at the southeast corner they function independently due to a large open space corridor, and they also have direct access to the surrounding corridor and a major collector road network. These lands also would allow for the further efficient use of service lands. This change would allow for up to 217 units, approximately, representing an increase on this small parcel of land of 157 additional units in this area. Within the broader Parcel 4 area, we're asking that the areas designated residential low density 1 be redesignated to residential low density 2. This change allows for a broader, more diverse housing choice, including semi-detached townhouse and duplex units. This amendment would yield approximately 57 additional units within that planning area. Finally, there are a number of outdated policies that were implemented nearly 15 years ago through the OMB approval in 2008. I would argue in a very different planning and housing environment that we're in today. So we're requesting the removal of very rigid unit mix caps, and we're asking for the removal of a minimum rear lot width requirements along Church Drive. These policies restrict, in my opinion, the efficient use of land, they increase housing costs, and they limit the town's ability to meet affordability objectives within this community. In closing, our requests don't undermine the town's planning vision. Instead, they modernize older policy frameworks, they support additional housing within lands already approved for development, and they contribute meaningfully to achieving provincial land use housing policies and objectives. We ask that staff and council consider the submissions tonight and in our letter, and we'd be more than happy to meet with staff to discuss our comments and a path forward together. Thanks for your time this evening. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your comments, much appreciated. Next, we have Keith McKinnon. Welcome, Mr. McKinnon.
Good evening, Your Worship, members of council, staff, members of county council, consultant team, and members of the public. As stated, my name is Keith McKinnon. I'm with KLM Planning Partners, Inc., here before you this evening on behalf of 903-287 Ontario Limited, whom are the owners of 1460 7th Line. This property has a long history. Been working with the landowners for about 20 years through many different iterations of staff that you've had, consultant teams, your existing official plan amendment number 1, the Orbit secondary plan, and now this existing OP update review. The subject parcel itself is highlighted in red. It's at the northeast corner, 7th Line and 20th Side Road. I see this property at least twice a day, so it brings back lots of discontent in terms of where we are in the planning process. It's got frontage both on 20th Side Road and 7th Line. It's directly adjacent to the Metrolinx rail line and the existing Alcona settlement area, and is about 1.5 kilometers away from the future GO train station down on the 6th Line. I think a few things that we're concerned with, and we've been working with staff and the consultant team on the OP review process, and specifically through the SABE review, and we think, frankly, it's fundamentally flawed. Where we feel it's flawed is in relation to the servicing component of this site. So on the slide here, you can see the boundary of the property is outlined in red. There's a few critical items that I think was missed in the SABE review process. One of which, there's an existing transmission water main that runs north-south on the 20th Side Road. That's the dashed green line that you can see along the eastern edge of the 20th Side Road there. Second thing is there's an existing fire hydrant at the northeast corner of 20th and 7th, highlighted in the yellow dot there. Thirdly is we've been working with in-services for about a year now for the location for a sanitary pump station that's going to be located in approximately the location of the green dot that you can see in that location. Not sure what that's from, but Anyways, so we've been working with in-services on the location of the sanitary pump station, which is going to be sized appropriately to accommodate the flows from the site. This sanitary pump station forms part of your overall sanitary servicing strategy that's servicing your Highway 400 employment lands. We feel that critical piece of information has been missed in the SABE review process, and we certainly have made submissions with respect to that. We have made written submissions. We have a written submission here this evening, and I just felt it was important to provide this information to council as well. Within the proposed official plan amendment, you've got the property which is outlined in blue in the detailed slide. The purple outline is what you see is the secondary plan boundary. So that secondary plan boundary that you see is for the Orbit secondary plan. So these lands have been included in the Orbit secondary plan boundary, but they're in transit-oriented community number 3. Transit-oriented community number 3 is not slated for development till at a minimum post-2051. And some information has identified that could be as late as 2091. So I'll be long gone by the time that process ever happens, and I would not want to be waiting around for that to happen. So we feel, although it's identified as a primary settlement on the municipal structure map or strategy map, it should also be reflected the same on the proposed land use map. So the proposed land use map is pretty consistent with your existing land use map, whereas these lands are designated as rural. These lands have been designated for rural for many, many years, so they're not impacting any prime agricultural area. They're not impacted by any MDS formulas or analysis that's been undertaken. They're easily serviced. So we feel, in our opinion, that these lands should be included in the settlement boundary by virtue of this process. So with that, Your Worship, happy to answer any questions should there be any. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. McKinnon. Next on our list is Matthew Halo.
Good evening again, Your Worship, member of councils, member of the public, staff. Will be one of 2 of my deputations in the Orbit. This is on the southern edge of the Orbit secondary plan area. These lands are located in TOC 3. And just an overview, site location, request to council, proposal and the project vision. Generally, the infrastructure and servicing readiness of the site, community benefit, and the opportunity for the town. As you can see on the map, we're in the southeast corner of the Orbit secondary plan area and contiguous with an existing settlement area. The subject lands are about 53.8 hectares. Again, they're directly adjacent to an existing settlement area, and the planned context of the subject lands directly supports the overall growth of a major transit station area and strategic growth area. Similar to the last speaker, we've identified that the subject lands in the draft official plan are located on Schedule A within a primary settlement area. And furthermore, this designation is afforded to the entirety of the Orbit secondary plan area. However, we feel that it's, generally speaking, as the Orbit progresses, there's an opportunity to separate it out from the general consistency or framework of Alcona as a primary settlement area. So we have general concerns about the way that the draft is framed as it relates to dealing with a major transit station area, appropriately delineating it per the PPS 2024 and sort of that opportunity that an update to an official plan provides. So we feel as if there was a lackluster approach associated with the MTSA delineation as well as the policy framework that's been sort of evolved through this current draft. Similarly, the subject lands are located, designated a rural area, agricultural area, key natural heritage and features and key hydrological features. Schedule B also continues to identify the subject lands as subject to an appeal, notwithstanding of them being identified on that schedule. I believe it's sort of a housekeeping issue that staff would have to address It's our understanding that the appeal was dismissed in 2022. So just a general comment there. On the OP schedules, though, for Schedule B, similar to the Keith McKinnon, it's our desire to sort of bring that hierarchical order associated with the settlement area, the primary settlement area, through to the Schedule B land uses. And there's going to be I'll have some discussion later on in the slide deck about sort of the precipice of these subject lands and the importance to the Bellewaert settlement area and some of the ecological and environmental challenges that are facing the site and general subdivisions adjacent to the southeast and east. So we have a few requests to council in general consideration. The first is the modification of Schedule A to reflect the entirety of the Orbit secondary plan area, and furthermore to delineate the appropriate 800-meter boundary associated with MTSAs and the Plan Go station. The second request is to modify Schedule B, first and foremost, to remove the designation of the lands remaining under appeal as it relates to the subject lands at 1194 and 1224 Bel Air Beach Road. The second request for Schedule B is to create a separate settlement area mapping or schedule that reflects the planned major transit station area land use designations and frameworks that were endorsed by council in the Orbit secondary plan area. And we envision sort of separate, say for instance, delineated MTSA boundary as a separate settlement area map, similar to B1, B2, et cetera, for specifically the Orbit secondary plan area. The third is consideration in terms of deferral of the draft official plan until such time that the province finalizes their ERO considerations as it relates to South Simcoe growth strategy. And the fourth is embarking on updating the council-endorsed secondary plan holistically as it relates to local and regional market area considerations. It's our understanding that there's been some dialogue with council as it relates to the subject land specifically and the potential to address overarching issues as it relates to the environmental considerations. So just an overview of the proposal. We've presented this proposal to council previously, and there's a consideration of sort of dealing with some of the environmental issues associated with some of the channelization and the current floodplain. But in the future, there's an opportunity here to provide a complete community and drive that housing stock forward in replacement of, say, for instance, high-rise towers in the short term. So adapting to sort of local and regional
30 seconds.
considerations. So there's some community benefits. Again, about 3,100 new residential units are proposed. And there's a series of considerations. Again, the biggest community benefit for this site is sort of the existing floodplain issue that we're planning on mitigating, working on mitigating through our planning applications. We've had pre-consultations. We have technical consultants on board, and we're anticipating submitting planning applications in the near future to address some of the imminent environmental issues that are considered are apparent on the subject lands and adjacent lands. You can see sort of our preliminary complementary channel design. We've been involved in the EA associated with the area and continued consultation with staff and the CA. Okay, just an overall servicing strategy for the subject lands, and open to any comments and questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hale. Appreciate that. Next is Greg Barker. Mr. Barker.
Thank you, and good evening, Mayor Dolan and council, staff, and representatives from the county. My name is Greg Barker. I'm a managing partner with Innovative Planning Solutions. I'm speaking on behalf of Bar Bay Holdings Limited. They are the owner of lands 3584 Highway 89. And for those of you who maybe don't have a map, that's located at the northwest intersection of Highways 400 and 89. I do appreciate the efforts made by everyone on this exciting initiative, specifically staff, who I know have been working hard. My comments are fairly limited, and I do appreciate this opportunity to provide feedback on the draft official plan amendments, but also to highlight an important opportunity to ensure that the proposed Highway 89 and 400 strategic employment area is planned in a cohesive manner and to optimize the future development capability of this important interchange. I do note the previous speakers were on residential, primarily projects. This one is more employment commercial related. And I also take note in the presentation from the consultant that there's an amendment being considered to remove the area from a settlement area and more just the strategic employment area. So I just want to highlight that the draft amendment proposes to establish the strategic employment area at the northeast, southwest, and southeast quadrants of Highway 400 and 89. And they're proposing to designate them appropriately as Highway 400 and 89 Strategic Employment Area. But notably, my clients' lands are, which are located at the northwest quadrant, they're the only lands abutting this interchange that are excluded from this Strategic Employment Area designation. And so that's the purpose of me being here tonight, is to request for council to direct staff to include those lands and amend the proposed official plan documents to include roughly 16.3 hectares of our clients' lands. And also just want to advise that we have provided written comments to the town that does provide for a more detailed and accurate description of the lands, which I am referring to for consideration. And as I mentioned, the property, it's situated at the intersection of 489. If you're coming southbound and getting off at Highway 89, it's the property immediately on your right-hand side of the off-ramp. The entire property is roughly 35.5 hectares. There's 350 meters of frontage along Highway 89 and 500 meters along the Fifth Side Road. And as I mentioned, roughly 16.5 hectares of the property is considered developable. And that's the portion of land we're asking be considered for inclusion. And again, this area, the 16.3 hectares of land, generally bound by Highway 89, as well as the off-ramp from the 400, and the 100-year flood limit associated with Innisfil Creek, the Innisfil Creek corridor. And that line, we are working with Tatham Engineering to establish that through a flood hazard assessment. And for those of you familiar with the area, there's a mix of uses in there. Commercial, gas station, restaurant, motel, of course the Tanger Outlet Mall as well at the interchange. And it's our view that excluding these subject lands creates an incomplete and fragmented planning outcome at an important location within the town. And considering the character of the area, including our lands in the proposed strategic employment area would facilitate compatible employment development to reinforce and round out the overall employment character of the interchange. And some of the rationale, so from a policy perspective, we support the town's vision of the town for this area, given its access to Highway 400 and its potential to support long-term employment growth. Our client's property shares the same locational context, benefits from the same proximity to the existing major transportation corridors, and believe it's reasonable and appropriate to include these lands within the strategic employment area. And so doing so, as I mentioned, it would help to support a cohesive employment node and help fully implement the town's vision through coordinated land use planning, infrastructure development and planning, and compatibility across the entire interchange. And additionally, our request aligns closely with provincial planning direction, which encourages employment areas to be planned around major transportation corridors, particularly locations with direct access to highways such as 489. Naturally, there's the ability to support economic activity, goods movements, and long-term job growth.
30 seconds.
It's also important to recognize that maintaining long-term agricultural uses at the edge of this major interchange with high traffic volumes and safety constraints is increasingly incompatible with the real function of this area, and we believe the employment uses are far more suitable and resilient in this context. So in light of that, again, Your Worship and Council, I'd ask for consideration of these lands to be included, the 16.5 hectares of land, and as I alluded to, there is a graphic with our written submission for staff to look at more closely and more accurately. So with that, I thank you for this opportunity, and we look forward to working with staff through this initiative. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barker. Next, we have Billy Tung. Thank you, Mr. Tung, whenever you're ready.
Hi. Okay, good evening, Your Worship, members of council, representatives from the county and staff, and members of the public. My name is Billy Tung. I'm a registered professional planner and a partner at KLM Planning Partners. We're here on behalf of the Muso Group of companies, which are operating under as 1720121 Ontario Limited. This is with respect to lands located at 3425 6th Line, which is just at the intersection of 6th Line and Highway 400. So again, similar to the last speaker, the request that before you this evening is really to consider the addition of these subject lands for employment uses within the existing Innisfil Heights employment area. As you can see on the context plan before you, these lands are immediately abutting the existing Innisfil Heights employment area. It is right at the planned interchange location at 6th Line and Highway 400. So again, similar to the points made by the last speaker, it is located at a strategic highway corridor, transportation corridor location that will benefit the subject lands. Also to note is that there are active development applications for a employment draft plan of subdivision immediately to the north of this site with a planned road intersection that is directly opposite our subject lands. So there's a level of development application and activity already happening immediately next to the site. I just want to quickly highlight that historically under OPA number 2, which was adopted by Council in 2020, the subject lands were actually part of an identified future strategic settlement employment area. So it was slated back in 2020 to be the next phase of growth in terms of the expansion of this employment area. As identified in 2020. So we're a little bit surprised to see when this was not continued and carried on in the draft official plan that's being presented at the moment. So our ask is really to rectify that by, again, following the direction from Council back in 2020 for the consideration of these lands to be included in that strategic settlement employment area now through this round of the OP review. Again, the reiteration of it being that it is in that proximity, actually right at the planned highway interchange at 6th Line. It is directly abutting the existing Innisfil Heights employment area. And in addition to that, our client has engaged in some consultation work with civil engineer, and they've identified that through the in-works background studies that there is planned water main directly adjacent to this site, as well as the opportunity for an alternative location for a required sanitary pumping station to be located in and around this area that, again, services this portion of Innisfil Heights. So there's some strategic benefits to including these lands through this current OP update. So again, I welcome any questions. I'm here and available. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Next on the list, you're up again, Mr. Halo.
Thank you for your indulgence. Mayor Dolan, members of council, the public, staff, thank you very much. I'm back up here again for the third deputation, 1363, 1425, 7th line, representing the landowners there. My name is Matthew Haler, registered professional planner with Innovative Planning Solutions. Again, just a brief overview here. The landowners are long-standing community builders who have been actively engaged with both the town, the county, throughout their respective official plan review processes and the province or ERO for South Simcoe. Most recently, staff at a pre-consultation we met with staff at a pre-consultation meeting for the future development of subject lands, submitted a SABE request, and have participated in discussions with the province through their ERO. We have reviewed the town's draft official plan in the context of the county's growth framework and the plan framework, town's council endorsed orbit secondary plan, the growth management strategy PPS 2024, and the province's ERO. This presentation provides an overview of the subject lands, which are currently 800 meters from the planned GO station within TOC3 and planned for a mix of land uses associated with the continuation of the Alcona settlement area and the driver through the MTSA strategic growth area. Again, similar to my last presentation, the subject lands have been identified on Schedule A as a primary settlement area, but the full suite of the policy framework associated with the council-endorsed secondary plan hasn't been fully brought through this schedule as it relates to the MTSA itself. Similarly, the lands are in the rural area. They're designated key natural heritage features and key hydrological features, and they're currently abutting the existing built-up area associated with the primary settlement area of Alcona. So similar to the last request, there's a few requests here. The first is to modify Schedule A to reflect the entirety of the secondary plan and to delineate the 800 meters associated with the GO station. To modify Schedule B to create a separate settlement area mapping schedule that reflects the planned major transit station area and land use designations in that framework associated with the council-endorsed secondary plan. The fourth is to embark on updating the secondary plan as it relates to local and regional market areas and bringing that forward through. And the fifth is that in consultation with the landowners within the orbit secondary plan, the town seek an update from the province of Ontario on the completion of the GO station. We've reviewed the draft official plan policy framework in relation to TOC3 and understand there's that driver that the GO station be up and running, operating before those lands TOC3 lands can be considered for future expansion of the settlement area. It's our opinion that major transit station areas in and of themselves are settlement areas associated with the PPS 2024, and there should be a further driver through area-specific policy framework that was considered in the council-endorsed secondary plan, but updated to reflect current market conditions to then drive that forward through the final version of the OP. So we've pre-consulted with staff. We're in the midst of finalizing future planning applications. We've assembled a full suite of consultants that have put together a general land use plan and sort of supporting materials. So we're anticipating about 400 new jobs and about 2,700 residential units. There's a bit of a mistake there, but yeah, and there's a series of sort of complete community considerations associated with mixed use, parkland, public and sort of privately owned, publicly accessible, and future road network that connects directly to TOC1. From a servicing perspective, we understand there's an opportunity to bring the lands online through a coordinated servicing strategy, and just a few considerations associated with the planned servicing strategies for the subject lands. So there's a proposed water main along the 7th line that will be brought into the subject lands and then continued further along. And then an existing connection on 20th. Same thing with the sanitary associated with the subject land. So there's a holistic sort of coordinated process associated with our technical expert, our civil engineer, that there's some coordination with in-services as to how the site can be serviced fully, and in consideration of sort of the expansion lands associated with North Alcona and South Stroud. We believe there's a broader approach and a broader opportunity here to drive growth for the town forward through a coordinated effort with all landowners within the Orbit Secondary Plan. Again, just a list of sort of opportunities for the town. So strategic transit-oriented growth, housing supply, affordability, and jobs. The fiscal responsibility associated with planned infrastructure delivery past 2051. There's opportunities in the PPS 2024 for lands to be brought forward either through a settlement area expansion, but also a coordinated infrastructure opportunity for the town holistically. So we think there's an opportunity here to revisit some of the growth management strategy considerations
30
as
seconds.
it relates to the opportunity that the MTSA provides for transit-oriented communities, the ability to, and some of the sort of goals and objectives that have been identified for quite some time in the draft official plan, either a town or county-led sort of transit infrastructure that allows for connectivity from the existing settlement areas into and from the planned GO station, et cetera, associated with the Orbit Secondary Plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Halo. You certainly earned your paycheck tonight. Is that the end of the speakers that have registered? Great. So now anyone else who hasn't registered and would like to come up and make a comment or ask some questions, please feel free. Please, sir. If you could just state your name for the record when you get to the mic. Thank you.
My name is Harjot Singh Thalia. First off, I want to thank everyone here, doing consulting as well. So I have three main questions I want to ask you guys. I was looking over the official plan. I want to ask, the first question is, what is a realistic timeline that you can provide for the hospital as well as the surrounding civic area? Anyone?
So what we'll take your questions first, all of them, and then if we have the opportunity to answer them tonight, if not, we'll get those answers for you.
All right, amazing. And my next question would be, are there any development freezes on any of the surrounding area for the Civic Center? And my last question would be, what does it mean when the land is categorized as Civic Center expansion land and or institutional community commercial zoning? So yeah, that's my last question. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Carrera or Ms. Giancola, are we prepared to answer questions about the designation around the Civic Center?
Thank you, Mayor. So the Civic Center is a part of the town's urban structure and has been part of your official plan for some years now. As it relates to lands around the Civic Center, they have been identified within the official plan. And in addition, there are additional lands identified as future community space civic expansion area around the existing civic center. And those areas are intended to be beyond the planning horizon of the official plan and to look at opportunities for a range of uses such as recreational, institutional, and post-secondary type of institutions in proximity to where we are today here. As it relates to timing, I'm unfortunately not able to speak to timing around the hospital. And in terms of development freezes, this still would require an official plan amendment to do further kind of planning to look at these lands. It is beyond the planning horizon of the official plan. I'm not sure if my colleagues would like to add anything further.
So I'll just ask or answer a little bit about the hospital. If we could make it happen, it would have been yesterday, but we cannot do that. So it's up to the province of Ontario. So we're at the whim of the province and the will of the province when it comes to the South Campus for the hospital. And I would also suggest that if you have site-specific questions, to please avail yourself of the opportunity to contact the planning department and speak to them, and then you can have a one-on-one with them. Thank you. Other questions or comments from members of the audience? Mr. Wardlaw. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Dole and members of council. I just have a couple of observations, and one of them is that agriculture is fairly important in Innisfil. And at the open house tonight, there was several large farm families that were represented at that meeting. And unlike any of the other speakers here tonight, none of them were trying to advance any of their properties. They're concerned about any impacts that could be negative through some of the terminology in the document that could affect them down the road. It could be interpreted now differently or interpreted in the future in a negative impact to their farms. So that's just a comment I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you, former Councillor Wardlaw. Thank you for those comments. Other questions or comments? Ms. Stott, welcome.
Nice to finally be at the podium. Just a question on the hospital, actually. Just wondering, last I heard, one of the hang-ups at the province was we hadn't reached a certain fundraising goal, and they were waiting for us to reach a certain fundraising amount, or is it just advocating? Just wondering, as residents, what we can do to help speed that along, if it's advocating to the provincial government, or if it is a fundraising issue, or just kind of where the holdup is.
Thank you. I'll take it, and then I'll go to Director Lee. So we are required to fundraise for what they call the local share, which is about 10% of the total cost. But then we also have to fundraise for capital, like the furniture in the hospital. So it really comes out to quite more of that. We have an excellent fundraising team, and they're always looking for more volunteers, and I'd be happy to put you in touch with them. We do advocate with the Ministry of Health on a regular basis, and but there's many stages to go through. I think there's 9 stages from beginning to end, and I believe we're in stage 3 or 2. So we have a ways to go, but we aren't deterred, and we have great support from our member of provincial parliament, and we'll keep at it.
Could you give us insight as far as how much we need to raise and where we're at?
I can't give you that tonight, Ms. Stott, but we can certainly get that information for you.
Perfect. Yeah, a little public campaign. Maybe we can get the funds moving. Thanks.
Thank you. Other questions and comments on the official plan review? Thank you, and please state your name for the record.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council, members of the County Council, and staff. My name is Ray Duhamel with the Jones Consulting Group, and I'm representing Christon Construction and DG Pratt Construction. They own lands that are located just north of Alcona on the north and the south side of the 9th line. And before I get into those parcels specifically, I was actually just thinking about the track that you're on. You're looking to adopt this, it looks like in March, according to the very first presentation that was made. And we haven't seen a track changes version. I understand from staff that there's so many changes that it's very difficult to release a track changes, but equally for those that are trying to review this document, there's hundreds of pages, it's quite a challenge trying to work through every single policy and trying to understand what has changed and what has not changed in the absence of a track changes document or some sort of summary that be able to pinpoint which policies have not been changed so we can hone in on those. So I really urge this council and staff by being here to think about how they can release something to, if the whole document is worked on, the people that are going to use this on a regular basis, well, it would be tremendously helpful to be able to make sure that we didn't miss nuances in the document that just because it's hundreds of pages long. So just as my starting point, going back to the Pratt lands north and south of the 11th line, we'd ask you to, those are known as 11A and 11B in the SABE analysis. The 11A lands support those being included in the expanded boundary of Alcona. That's basically south of the 9th line. Request that that staff or your consultant can provide some additional information about why lands north of the 9th line were not included in the expansion, yet lands west of the 20th, which is parcel number 50, have been included in the expansion. And the reason for that, we were looking for that clarification. We want to make sure that have staff considered three key points. Number one, the Pratt have been planning for the expansion north of Alcona dating back to 2004. So it's actually, we're on our 22nd year now of technical work and requests to expand north of Alcona. Secondly, there's your master servicing plan plans for services right along the 9th line. So we can't understand any servicing reason why going west of the 20th side road would make more sense from a servicing scenario than having the pipes already on the 9th line servicing both the north and the south side of the 9th line. And then the last and most important in the comments that I'm making is the lands on the north of the 9th line, stormwater retention on those lands would help downstream flooding problems where you're in an emergency situation with public health and safety, and that is certainly not the case with parcel number 50. So no concerns about parcel number 50 on its own being expanded, but if it's at the expense of going north of the 9th, we think there's more planning merit from a public health servicing and long-term planning horizon perspective and history that's gone into planning in that area than isolating an individual like square block just west of the 20th side road. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeHamel. I didn't recognize you there for a minute. So can I ask staff about the track changes issue, or if there's something that can be provided?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I do believe it was incorporated into one of the slides. As Ms. Giancola stated, in the efforts to streamline the document, reorder the document, many of the policies moved rather than were deleted. We certainly take the comments that have been raised, and they were raised at the open house. We do find it may be a struggle for a track change version because you actually can't read the document with just the movement of policies. But we'll take that back further in terms of a bit of a summary table of what's still there but just relocated versus what's been deleted or revised. Certainly we had identified that any changes that are made from this draft to the final version, there will be redline revisions of those proposed changes when that document is presented to council later this spring.
Thank you very much. Other questions and comments from members of the public here today? Please come forward. Yep. State your name for the record.
Hariba Rohani, Your Honors. I do hope you get the hospital. I spent many years in healthcare. This is about Cookston. I think Kevin very eloquently presented our position. I'm one of the two owners. My husband and I own the property, and for 15 years we have tried to get it included. This inclusion has been delayed because of servicing. Before it was water, now it's servicing, and we know the latest study showed there are multiple options. All we are asking for that consideration be given to the proposals we made. We came back with comments about servicing. And why is this important? Our project is not some subdivision. It was always envisioned to be this affordable, accessible housing, an integrated community, and we feel strongly that Cookston, because of its proximity, it can be a vibrant community, and it deserves to be given the chance. Every review, Cookston gets excluded for the same reasons. So if we could maybe just examine the feedback given, because the reason it gets excluded, our property is adjacent to the development. Its future development is below the lagoons, is right next to where development is happening, and it's an integrated community that will attract a lot of young professionals, retired individuals, will bring vibrancy, jobs to Cookston. So all we want is maybe just an examination of the feedback we have given about servicing. The only reason Cookston is not advancing to what it can be, which is a beautiful community with such proximity to Toronto, and maybe it can have its own hospital, if you could just advance it, is servicing. So all we are asking for, can someone examine why the feedback we have given is not considered? And if it was considered, what can be done? I also heard from other people that fund also have interest in Cookston. So that really is what I wanted to share. We really hope that that future is possible, that it's not 2050 and 2070, that we can actually develop this initiative that's in line with provincial priorities. So thank you. And I know a lot of work has been done, and we have had many, many conversations over the 15 years with the town staff. But this always gets in the way of Cookston moving to the next level. And it's really sad in many ways. I wish we could find a solution and make it happen for Cookston.
Thank you,
Your Honor.
Thank you. Other questions or comments from members of the public that are here? Please welcome and state your name for the record.
My name's Amy Simpson, and I'm a local realtor here, and I just wanted to reiterate kind of what she was saying here about Cookstown. There's a huge pull for people to stay on the 400 corridor. It adds 15 to 20 minutes for people to be commuting into Alcona now. So that draw to keep people as close to the 400 corridor is essential. So I just want to keep that in mind when we're talking about expanding these areas of Cookstown. It will also draw people from the Alliston area into the Cookstown area instead of commuting further into the Alliston area and used to come see. Just a thought.
Thank you for your comments. Other questions, comments from members here? I'll ask one more time. Anyone who hasn't spoken yet who would like to speak here? Seeing none, we'll go to the members that have told us that they want to speak to us virtually, and we'll start with Christine Loft. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Loft.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, Council, County Representative, and those in the audience. My name is Christine Loft of Loft Planning, and I represent San Diego Yonge Street GP Ltd. And with me this evening is Sandra Rosardo and Silvano Rosardo, who are with you in person in council chambers, and Marvin Geest and Susanna Nilsson are online. We are here tonight to speak to the official plan review as it relates to the San Diego Yonge Street lands located at 7665 and 7667 Yonge Street and identified in yellow on the screen. And these lands are identified as Site 1B within the SABE analysis. The site is located directly south of the current Stroud settlement boundary. The site is located at the northeast corner of Yonge Street and the 9th line, and the lands have a lot area of 38.36 hectares, and they're generally rectangular in shape. Next slide. So San Diego has been actively involved in discussion and formal pre-consultation with town staff in an effort to facilitate the subject lands being brought into the settlement area. A formal pre-consultation meeting was held with the town in July of 2024. And at this time, all technical reports for a full draft plan of subdivision, official plan amendment, and zoning bylaw amendment are either completed or well underway. Next slide. This is the concept plan prepared by Hunt Design, which was the basis of the 2024 formal pre-consultation process. The development proposes 818 units in a range of housing choices. There's also a centralized stormwater management pond and a municipal park proposed that would be conveyed to the town. And on this slide, you can also see the Yonge Street 9th line roundabout in blue and a proposed pumping station in the black circle just north of the roundabout. Next slide. This is the proposed Schedule B to the draft official plan, and I've highlighted the subject lands in a heavy line located along the southern boundary. As a result of the agricultural impact assessment and specifically the minimum distance separation calculations, the draft official plan proposes to bring only a portion of the San Diego lands into the settlement boundary of Stroud. The area proposed to be brought in are in yellow and with the light red outline. And of course, these lands, as you can see, are triangular in shape, which is not very conducive to a development proposal and makes servicing and future planning very difficult. Next slide. This slide represents our ask that all of the San Diego lands be brought into the settlement area, that the portion of lands to be designated for residential development be squared off to allow proper development planning and servicing, and to allow phasing in a more logical pattern, and to redesignate the remainder of the lands in a special policy area to allow for future studies related to the AIA criteria. And apologies, that slide was to have the underlying Schedule B7. Next slide. The San Diego Homes has secured its membership in IDAG, the Innisfil Developers Allocation Group, and is a member of the Stroud Village Developers Group. Based on the upsizing of the sewer on 8th line at a cost of $443,000 and a DC prepayment, San Diego has contributed $10,500,000 in prepayment to the town for services. Next slide, please. The In-Services Master Servicing Plan Update 2023 includes upgrades to the Stroud water system with connection to the Alcona Reservoir. The water system upgrades include a new reservoir tower, a booster pumping station, and water main on Yonge Street. The location of the water reservoir tower is currently being reviewed through a Class EA process, and one of the potential locations is on the subject lands. Next slide. The San Diego, the In-Services Master Servicing Plan includes the upgrades to the Stroud water system with connection to the Alcona Reservoir. The water reservoir upgrades include a new water tower, booster pumping station, and water main on Yonge Street. Next slide, please. This is a note from PPS 2024. So while the AIA offers consistency with PPS 2024, we are of the opinion that with the new AIA guidelines, further review is necessary. So this is section 2.3.2 from the PPS, which highlights the criteria the planning authorities shall consider when contemplating boundary expansions. We would ask that staff revisit the AIA in relation to the new AIA guidelines that were released last week by the province. In particular, there is additional language relating to hierarchy of location alternatives for settlement area boundary expansions. And as it relates to settlement area boundary expansions, the new guidelines identify that, and I am quoting a specific section, while the ideal location from an agricultural perspective would be where impacts on the agricultural land base and the agri-food network would be lowest, other considerations, for example, servicing, natural heritage features, and source water protection also need to be factored in. Where impacts to the agricultural systems cannot be avoided, they need to be minimized and mitigated. And the next slide. So in conclusion, we would request that 7665 and 7667 Yonge Street be wholly brought into the settlement boundary of Stroud as part of Schedule B7. We would request that the draft official plan permit residential development in a portion of the lands on the basis that the lands are part of the servicing solution for Stroud. These lands are the most logical location for expansion based on servicing, location, and lot area, and that the remainder of the lands that front onto 9th line be designated with a site-specific designation to allow for further assessment with regard to the AIA. Thank you for your time. That's my presentation. I did provide detailed comments earlier today to the clerk's department, which highlights anything I said within this presentation, as well as further comments and specifics. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Loft. And next is Mark Jacobs. Mr. Jacobs, whenever you're ready.
Hi, good evening, Madam Mayor and members of council. My name is Mark Jacobs, and I am an associate at the Big Larry Group. I am here on behalf of Delray Developments, who is the owner of 6225 Yonge Street. The property is located at the southeast quadrant of Yonge Street and Killarney Beach Road in Churchill. On behalf of the owner, Big Larry Group submitted a settlement area boundary expansion request to the County of Simcoe through the county's MCR process. Further, I also delegated at the June 25th council meeting with respect to the growth options report presented at the time. Further, written comments were submitted this afternoon in relation to staff's recommendation report. The settlement area expansion request is for additional lands to be added to the Churchill settlement area boundary. The current settlement area boundary runs through the middle of the existing fields and not along any defined feature, such as public roads or the creek that flows through the property. The natural heritage features and associated protection buffers on the property account for approximately 18 hectares of the lands, which is almost half the size of the 40-hectare property. These areas are not included in our settlement area boundary expansion request. Churchill is currently serviced by municipal water. Future municipal sanitary infrastructure has been identified in the town's 2023 master servicing plan to connect Churchill to the Lakeshore wastewater treatment plant in Lefroy as a local improvement project. As I stated in June, the owner has expressed interest in front-ending the construction of the sanitary services to Churchill. This, of course, would only be feasible with an expansion of the hamlet boundaries to include additional portions of the subject site. In our written comments submitted this afternoon, an updated concept plan was provided. This concept identifies a mix of low and medium density residential units, as well as seniors housing and 2.5 hectares of parkland. The parkland would more than double the parkland dedication requirements. The additional residential lands would help to significantly spread out the cost of further sanitary services within Churchill and allow existing residents to connect to sanitary services at a much lower individual cost. Our written comments today also include a memo from Urban Metrics, who were retained by the owner to conduct an assessment of our settlement area boundary expansion request. The memo has outlined how the settlement area boundary expansion request meets the 6 threshold criteria originally identified staff for settlement area boundary expansions. Urban Metrics have also done a land needs assessment based on the Ministry of Finance projections, as well as stipulated in the 2024 provincial planning statement. Urban Metrics notes that there is a significant shortfall of lands required for ground-related housing in Innisfil, a portion of which could be met on the subject site. I'd like to note further that a more fulsome analysis from Urban Metrics will be submitted prior to the January 30th deadline. As outlined in staff's report, the subject site was not included in staff's recommended settlement area boundary expansions. In our opinion, the settlement area boundary expansion should be reconsidered for the following reasons. It will contribute to the projected population growth in Innisfil. The expansion area is well under the identified lands required to meet projected growth as per OPA 7 of the County of Simcoe official plan, which would also allow for settlement area expansions to spread out to other settlement areas such as Alcona and Stroud. Churchill has existing municipal water and can be serviced with sanitary sewers as indicated in the 2023 MSP, which, as I noted, the owner has expressed interest in front-ending. The settlement area boundary expansion is wholly within the town. The expansion area does not contain any specialty crop area and not in the Greenbelt plan. And the proposed settlement area boundary expansion is located immediately adjacent to the Churchill settlement area boundary, of which 7 hectares of the subject site is already located within the settlement area boundary. These lands within the settlement area had official plan amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and draft plan of subdivision approvals last year for residential development. To conclude, I'd like to reiterate my request that staff reconsider our request for adding the subject site to the Churchill settlement area. That concludes my presentation for tonight. Thank you very much. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jacobs. So that ends the people that have registered online, but I'll now ask the clerk's office if any emails have been received during this meeting.
Thank you, Your Worship. No emails have been received during this meeting.
Thank you. I'll now go to members of council. Questions, comments on any of tonight's. Councillor Saunders.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Now, I understand there's a need for this official plan, but can you explain why any property owner, developer can make an application to contrary to what council has approved within the OPE? Many times during the process, there are several amendments to the policy and or zoning. Often these amendments are approved by planning and or approved or denied by council, contrary to the OP that has been set out. Following which it ends up in the OLT at a significant cost to town. It seems that when the OLT is involved, approvals are often given to the developer, even though it goes against our OP guidelines, when the application should have just been declined in the application before it comes to council. So I have two questions. One I know you should be able to answer tonight, and one you won't be able to. How many amendments are allowed for a developer to use against a OP before the town declines it? As I have seen some developments with 6 or more amendments to their plan, and it comes before council and approved by the developers, by planning, and declined by council because all the amendments and eventually ends up at the OLT costing large sums of money defending the application. So that's my first question. And how much money has been sent during this current council term at the OLT defending council's decisions, including lawyers, consultants, staff, and council's time? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I don't know if we can get you all of those answers tonight, but I'll go to Director Lee, certainly around the OLT process.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I think I'll start with the second one, that we would have to look into the total costs further from money spent towards OLT hearings to date during this term of council. In terms of the first question, which spoke to how many amendments before an application is turned down, it's hard to put a specific number on that. Every application has to be considered in terms of the type of amendment being asked for. Does it generally align with the direction and the policies in the official plan or not? And that's why every staff report looks at those documents, looks at the provincial guiding documents, and is there alignment from that perspective, and then makes a recommendation to council on those policies. So is there, a specific 3 amendment request is appropriate? We can't say a numerical value to that because we have to look at, there may be 6 amendments, but they are minor in terms of what they're asking for, so every application would be different. In terms of the overall OLT process, as Mayor Dolan has indicated, staff make a recommendation to council. Council can make a decision to agree with that staff recommendation or not. The applicant then has an opportunity to appeal whatever decision council makes. An applicant under the Planning Act also has the opportunity to appeal an application if council doesn't make a decision or staff don't bring forward a report within the legislative timeframes. So there are a number of ways that those OLT processes can be commenced.
Does that help you, Councillor? Thank you. Other questions or comments? Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question pertains to 11A and 11B and 50. I understand that 11B was cut back so that we could provide some extra development in Stroud. My concern is 50 in terms of it seems to be outside the existing settlement boundary in such an odd shape that it seems, I don't understand the reasoning, so I'm just looking for some clarification on why 50 was added and 11B would have been logistically a little more sustainable in terms of tracking that development. So I'm just going to look for some clarity on why 50 in that particular area. Thank you.
Ms. Feely, were you taking that one?
Through your worship to Councillor Waters' question. So when the growth report came to council back in June, 50, 11B, 11A, 9 were all identified as options for Alcona, and there was that discussion about would it be an only Alcona approach to growth, or would there be a hybrid approach with majority of growth to Alcona and a portion to Stroud? And the endorsement by council was to move forward with that hybrid approach, and 50 was always recognized as a potential based on its contiguous nature to 11A, and 11B, just being the land area that it is, there was a certain parameter of land area we were looking to identify, and 11A and 11B together and doesn't work with a Stroud hybrid approach, but it's certainly something that we can go back and look into further based on the discussion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mayor Dolan, just if I can follow up a little bit further on that, I think the other component, and you will see it on the draft schedules, is parcel 50 is identified as a commercial parcel. So it is not being identified from a housing perspective, but in terms of the efforts of a complete community, providing additional lands that are specifically for the purposes of commercial uses.
I appreciate the clarity. I just, if I remember looking at some of the documentation, that there was quite a bit of commercial along the 20th, south of the 9th, and so it seems that you have an unusual projection on the other side, on the east side, when I think that commercial growth could be handled on the east side of the 20th, south and 9th, as opposed to having that extra extension that, because it just begs that you should have development all the way along the 20th on both sides. But you don't, you have it just at that one little spot. So I was just looking for some clarification around why we chose that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zanella.
Thank you, Your Worship. With regards to the South Simcoe provincial growth and housing objectives, can I ask staff when we might expect to see that? Is there a timeline? Do we know when that document will be available?
Director Lee.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Through to Councillor Zanella. We're not in a position to understand a timeline of when that information may be shared. That is a separate process that the provincial facilitator is undertaking. So we continue to work through our process with an anticipated timing of bringing the document to council in the spring, April, May. But we are certainly aware of the questions about alignment to what that process looks like.
Thank you.
Councillor Ices.
Thank you, Worship. A couple questions or comments. We had a few presentations tonight that for projects to go ahead in the orbit lands, in the TOC3, the outside ring of the orbit lands. Have we put any residential numbers into our 2051 plans that would account for any development in that area? And if not, why would we not do that for all these reasons that it's already in the settlement area and available for development?
Director Lee.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. So through the Orbit Secondary Plan process, we identified the Transit-Oriented Community 1 and 2 lands, which are the MZO lands location. The population that's been identified for those lands is approximately 25,000 people, and then employment on top of that as part of the 2051 planning horizon. And so there is sufficient land identified immediately adjacent to the proposed GO station that should develop prior to the TOC3 lands. Having said that, through the consultation process on the secondary plan, there were a number of requests for consideration of TOC3 lands that may be around the periphery, similar to some of the projects that were identified tonight, that may be on existing roads, may have planned infrastructure that may allow those lands to develop sooner than 2051. So there are specific policies and criteria that were identified and incorporated into the Orbit Secondary Plan that lay out a framework for considering those lands potentially sooner than 2051 and the process that would be undertaken. Finally, I would say, obviously, that secondary plan, although adopted by council, is still with the County of Simcoe because they continue to wait for COPA 7 to have a decision to allow that secondary plan to be considered.
So I know in a perfect world, when the orbit was presented, it was going to be built systemically, the GO station, high density residential around it in the form of apartment buildings, condos, whatnot. and then it would expand to the next ring and the next ring. But I wonder if it's time, and I think when we're doing an official plan review, that is the perfect time, that be reconsidered because of the setbacks that we've experienced with that plan. I'm not sure, I don't think I'm talking out of school, that we've had any council meetings that have suggested that those lands at the center of the orbit are going to be developed anytime soon. So is it time to pivot as a town to recognize, we need housing. We've got these lands on the outside that are right next to where all the servicing is. They're not in agricultural lands. If they are in agricultural lands, they're not what I would say are class 1 or 2. And if I could perhaps expand on that, I wanted to take some time to talk about the agricultural impact assessment document that has gone on with this. And if you indulge me for a moment. So at the start of that document, it talks about settlement area boundary expansions permitted only where it's demonstrated that growth cannot be accommodated through intensification in designated greenfield areas. TOC 3 would accomplish some of that. Then it goes on to say alternatives that avoid prime agricultural land have been considered. I think if we look at the class of agricultural land in TOC 3, that's not prime agricultural land. TOC 3 could accommodate that. Where avoidance is not possible, lower priority prime agricultural land or use. I'm saying I agree that TOC would accomplish that. Compliance with the minimum distance separation formula is ensured, is another point. And this is where I have a lot of problems with the study. There's no consistency when we examine the areas that expansions are presented. At the I believe it's 1A that we've triangled off. We're acknowledging the minimum distance separation there. When we look at 50, which is also in that area, we're saying that we can mitigate that somehow. If I look at the mitigation suggestions in the plan, as an agricultural producer, I'm not very encouraged. And it talks about hedgerows, it talks about putting landscape boundaries in between that. It talks about having no spray applied to the areas beside that. All these things are not friendly to agriculture. I think Mr. Wardlaw was here and he noticed in the public meeting. I think we had most of a huge percent of the acres that are farmed and in Innisfil were represented there. There's real concerns over this official plan, over how it will impact agriculture. So those are my comments on that. I hope we have a chance for the agriculture community to give comments on this, and I hope there can be some changes around it. I think we're really pushing this along if we only have till January 30th to present these comments. Another part of the plan that gives me a red flag. In official plan part 5, it talks about cultural heritage landscapes. That this is now going to be part of our historical society, or not historical society, our heritage committee. Also, build heritage resources. Like these are phrases that really concern the agriculture community, and those phrases don't, in my mind, have a lot of application in Innisfil. It feels like this was cut and paste off of somebody else's official plan and dumped in there. You know, if we could have a chance as an agriculture community to, you know, go through the plan and address some of these concerns before it comes back to council to vote on it, I hope that that opportunity is afforded us, and I'm hoping we can maybe have some leeway on the deadlines that are currently in place. So I know I said a lot there, but I think from the agriculture community, there's been a lot highlighted here on TOC3. You know, what is the impact of developing that as opposed to perhaps some of these expansion lands? I also wanted to comment on, address Councillor Waters' comments on Site 50. We've got Site 50 and Site 9, and then we've got farmland in the middle. And then I've heard that we're going to put a roundabout on the 20th Side Road is planned. I don't know how farm equipment is even going to get there to produce anything on that land. So this haphazard approach to boundary expansion, I think, needs to be looked at as well. These little juts out here, you know, we've the developers said we don't like to build houses on a triangle. We don't like to farm on a triangle either. So I think it goes both ways. That we need to think a little bit with a little more common sense on how these are brought forward. So I'll leave it there. I know I covered a lot, but those are my comments.
Thank you, Councillor Ices. Did anyone want to respond to any of those comments, or should we go on to more and you can reflect on that? Director Lee?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I think there are a number of comments that we won't necessarily speak to tonight. I mean, the intent of the discussion, the intent of the comments that have come in either in writing or through verbal comments tonight, as we noted in the presentation, we would be taking all of those comments in and then reviewing, providing a summary as part of that follow-up to council, making additional changes to the document. So we've certainly heard the comments, including Councillor Ices, on some of the rationale behind, 1A versus 50 and other parcels, the TOC3 lands, and potentially relooking at that. Those are some of the requests that have been received that we would be reviewing anyways. In terms of some of the agricultural comments, I would say some of the language that would appear from other official plans, there are, as we noted through this process, the ability and the need to comply with the provincial planning statement. So a lot of language components, whether it's cultural heritage landscapes, those are direct wording from provincial policies that we need to incorporate into our documents in many cases. But certainly did have an opportunity to have some discussions in the drop-in session from an agricultural and Federation of Agriculture perspective. So we're certainly interested in the feedback that we've been hearing and continuing to review any comments or questions that have been coming forward.
Thank you very much. Councillor Richardson.
Just actually a couple comments from Councillor Gerard that I've received, that he was just saying that he supports Councillor Ices with the orbit and that it is holding up develop. I agree as well. And that he was supporting the comments about agriculture and that there should definitely be more engagement with the agricultural community before this is all completed.
Thank you. Councillor Waters.
Thank you, Your Worship. Concerning the orbit again, I understand and agree with part of what Councillor Ices was saying around Talk 3 in terms of allowing a certain portion of the development to go ahead. My concern, I like holistic design concepts in terms of how communities and neighborhoods come together, and I think the orbit has been designed in that way. It seems TOC 3, because it has a transition to existing communities, makes a little difficult. So I am supportive of May allowing that type of development to go ahead. My concern, however, is that I don't want it to look completely different from what we're going to have in the core of the orbit. So if it's planned to be high density and then slowly come down, I want to make sure that we envision what that community there between TOC1, TOC2, and the existing community that's there is just on the other side of the road, that we make sure that the development and also including the developers look at that in terms of how can we complete that so that it looks good and it functions well between, because it is almost a transition between the existing community and what's going to happen. So I understand from the developer's point of view of wanting to move ahead with that because it is next to an existing community, but I would like the developer and the town to look at in terms of how do we make sure that it's consistent and that when the whole development is finished, well after I'm gone, that people will say it was well designed, well thought out, and serves everyone really well. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I just have a couple of quick comments, and the comments that I'm going to make really derive more from the public open house that was held on January 6th, the one that was turned to virtual because of the weather. And there was some questions asked, I believe, from members of the public that were addressed well, but I just want to add my 2 cents worth in. So one of the residents asked, how are members of the public supposed to understand all this? And that's a really good question. It is difficult to wrap your head around this. I've been doing this for 30 years and I still find it difficult. But it's also really important for residents to pay attention because the official plan level is where those big, broad decisions are made. And if you're waiting until you see a surveyor in your backyard, it's too late. That means 20 years ago, a decision was made that is going to impact you now. So whether or not it's really hard to understand, I mean, we can break it down, but it is important for people to pay attention at this point, knowing that the effects won't be felt for quite a few years, but this is the time to get involved. Another question I heard, and I think Councillor Saunders touched on it a bit, was, why do we even bother with the OP process? Because the OLT decides everything anyway. And, it's true, but again, through my years, I've seen many, many versions of what was called the OMB, and then LPAT, and the OLT, and all with varying degrees of authority. So in the past government, if a council denied a settlement area boundary expansion, that was it. It was non-appealable. Now everything's on the floor again. So the rules change at the province quite a bit, but the reason that we need a good, strong, vibrant, and up-to-date official plan is because it's more defensible. We can go to the OLT with more confidence that our plan is fresh, our plan was well thought out, it was well consulted, it was done right. So there still is, no matter if we say no to something, staff say no to something, we could still be brought in front of the OLT, but if we have a good OP, we're a step ahead. And then the last comment that was made by a member of the public who was a bit frustrated, I guess, by this point and said, well, development happens everywhere. Council says yes to everything. It's the Wild West. Everybody who wants to develop their property gets to develop their property. And I think what we've seen tonight is that is not the case. Out of 53 applications for about 28, by the time you add the employment and the residential together, about 2,800 hectares. Staff at this point are recommending 5 with about 130 hectares. So that sense that people have that any developers get whatever they want isn't necessarily the case, much to the chagrin of some of the delegates we got here tonight who have been waiting and feel that it's their turn. But understanding we also hear from residents that they want growth to stop until we catch up with infrastructure and everything. So I just want to make those very quick points on things that I heard on the 6th of June. Anything that I'm happy to be challenged or corrected. Director Lee, if there's anything I said that's incorrect, please do. And then I'll ask Warden Clark or Councillor Miskimings any comments or questions this evening. Good. Okay, thank you. And thank you so much for being here. It's very much appreciated. My job at the county is Chair of Corporate Services, so I'm usually the one that goes to other council chambers and sits in at all their OP discussions, so it's kind of nice to be on the other side tonight. So having said all that, I'll now ask council, we'll now go to the recommendation to receive comments provided this evening, and can I have a mover and a seconder, please, for the recommendation? Councillor Zanella and Councillor Constantine, all those in favor? That is carried. Now, it's important, anyone who wishes to provide comment regarding the draft new official plan may still do so until January 30th, 2026, and may also register as an interested party to be notified before the item is considered by council or contacting the clerk's office at clerksoffice@innisfil.ca. I do believe there's also a sign, is there a sign-up sheet out front as well? If you're an interested party, please do that. If there's something that you want to say that you didn't have time to say tonight, please write in and speak to staff or ask any questions you may wish. Council thanks everyone for their participation, and we'll now go to the confirming bylaw and adjournment at 8:35 p.m. Moved by Councillor Richardson, seconded by Councillor Waters. All those in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much, everyone, for your time and attention.